11 at the sports ground saw one of the best rugby league games of the year, and not a try was scored in Balmain's 7-6 victory over a very courageous Eastern Suburbs team who gave 110%. The football was at times ferocious, but when all the dust had settled for a mightily fought battle, it was the lowly field goal from Englishman Gary Schofield which supplied the difference after 3 penalty goals each. You must have been very happy to get out of this one, Benny.
Yes, it certainly was one we had to win because to keep us up in number 1 position, and you know, it was very close. It could have been anybody.
They bustled you into all sorts of errors. It was an uncharacteristic Balmain performance. To your team's credit, they fought back and you've won it and you've taken the points. But I haven't seen Balmain put under so much pressure this year.
No, well, East had everything to lose yesterday, and they just gave their all yesterday, 110%, as you said earlier. They just gave everything into the last minute too, and you know, we were very lucky, as you said, to get out of jail.
Even with the Simpkins off the field, you couldn't score a try.
No, they were really keen. They were really bustling us in defence, and you know, Side hasn't done that against us for a while, and you know, it really proved dividends for them.
We'll have a look at that little incident later on, because it looked as though to me that could have been a try. But here's a collector's item. I haven't seen this before this year. Gary Jack failing to take a bomb. Not only did he fail to take it, he failed to touch it. And it was quite extraordinary, and McGagan could have actually scored 2 tries. But that, to his credit, referee Stone, that was a good decision, because Testman, and we'll show that incident later, comes up with a bad shepherd there. Filipina, well, he was like New Zealand, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's playing his test football style at the moment, and you know, when Olsen's firing, I think Eastern Suburbs are firing.
Well, you've got a lot to be thankful to young Scott Gale for yesterday, although he could have been sin-binned once for kicking the ball out of play there. I thought he had his foot raised. The referees have been a little bit inconsistent with the sin-binning. I was very unhappy about last week when Gary Jack held down Davis in the Manly Balmain game. I thought he should have been sin-binned. I've seen other players sin-binned for the same thing. I'm not asking you for a comment on that. You're not going to bag your own players. Benny, you got very involved in a lot of open running late in this game.
Yeah, it seemed to open up a little bit towards the end of the game. I think it was because it was played at such a hectic pace. There were some little gaps to be opened up here and there, and sort of you had to take advantage of the situation.
Now, was there any truth in the rumour that field goal wasn't set up for Schofield? It was set up for Gale.
Scotty Gale, yeah. Scotty's called the ball, and Scully's just, you know, thought he could do it, so he did.
Okay, look at this incident again. You see Worth, the fullback. They changed the camera shot on us here, and it's very difficult, but I think that pass was okay, and if I were an Eastern Suburbs player, I'd be very disappointed about that ruling. The next one I want to show you is Jack missing the bomb, because that was McGagan, the New Zealand forward, Eastern Suburbs forward, going through there, and it's McGagan here only 5 minutes later, so he's really missed the possibility of 2 tries in the space of 6 minutes. Look how close he goes, and Conlon's hands there just to bang it over the dead ball line. And the third one, this was a good decision by referee Stone, and it brought a howl of scream of abuse from the Eastern Suburbs officials I was sitting with. But if you look closely at the incident, you're going to find that Testman, number 11, severely interferes with 2 players. Bridge is one and Conlon is the other on the runaround. Now just watch it. The play goes out to Bell. There he goes. Testman goes in and takes Bridge out of the play. Conlon appeals to the referee, quite rightly, and that was a classic example of a shepherd that might have got away, but it was a good bit of refereeing. So apart from what I thought was one very bad one with the McGagan pass from Worth, he did the right thing on that occasion, so maybe they balance each other out.
Yeah, I think they even up a bit now.
Okay, mate, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back with a bit more, so don't go away. Late arrival at the ground failed to stop Western Suburbs defeating Illawarra in a very high-scoring game, 32-20. The Magpies piled on the pressure early and ran away to a winning 18-2 lead after 29 minutes. Lee Crooks directed the Magpies' attack, which was complete with powerful forward play and some great three-quarter line football, as you'll see. This Western Suburbs side, a couple of wins on the trot, they're going very well.
Going great. Lee Crooks, Warnicky, Brett Gale, they're all going really well. They're starting to fire, and it's good to see.
Nice to see Phil Clark. He's been a real... Paul Clark,
Craig Clark.
Craig Clark, right, we've got him. He's a player that gets through a lot of work. But what about the stepping ability of this young Mackie?
Unbelievable. He can score a try from anywhere, can't he?
Well, he can. I've got a rap on this young fella that you'll see score this try. Now, do you give raps to your opposition?
I always do, yes. You know, he deserves it too, because he's playing great football.
One of the best players in the Western Suburbs club. Now, smart try here is Worthington gets it from a Kelly pass and goes in and scores a good try. And I'd like to see a player improve the angle for the goal kicker too. Now watch big Crooks come on the burst here and slip the pass nicely to Geelan, who's a player that should have been in first grade regularly, but a funny attitude. He never seems to kick on, that fella. He's been around and been a good player, at times one of the best. Look at Hetherington score a try from dummy half here. Now, that's a bit of paltry defence.
That was very ordinary, wasn't it?
But, he's a strong, big player, that Hetherington. I've often thought of him as still a representative winger, you know.
Very quick and strong, you know.
Got the pace. Well, that was a 32-20 win to the Western Suburbs side, their second win in a row.
Good to see the Maggies going well.
Good to see the Maggies going well and putting egg on the New South Wales Rugby League's face, aren't they? Let's talk about Cronulla. And Cronulla's defence frustrated Canberra's attack last week. All the Sharks tackle like men possessed to run to a 12-2 half-time lead. Big prop David Grant from Canberra scored one try, and then he made another one to get Canberra into a match-winning situation. However, great play by Ettinghausen, Hillier and Hatch, who scored the winning try, levelled the scores at 16-all, and then Carney calmly slotted over the extra for a tight but very good away win. That was Grant's first try. He's a big player, big strapping fellow. You don't like standing in front of him, I wouldn't imagine.
He could be anything if he really put his mind to it. He's that big.
Attitude?
Maybe, I'm not too sure, Rex, but definitely a great player when he puts his mind to it.
Now here's Ettinghausen getting a pass away to Hatch, and Hatch backed up. Now he started that move, Hatch. Now he'd be one of the most born-again rugby league players in Sydney, that fellow. He was a non-event last year.
Yeah, he's playing great football.
Given the captaincy, and it's made all the difference to him. He comes up with 38 tackles, scores tries. He's been doing it all the year. This fellow Williams, Brad Williams, comes away, and a beautiful tackle from Hurst dissolves him with the ball there, and they lost a golden opportunity to score a try. And you shouldn't lose the ball there. Withall showing his ball skills to get the pass away one-handed. And young Ettinghausen coming up with a very good elusive run. He looks bigger to me, Ettinghausen, this year.
Yeah,
he's still a growing boy.
Yeah, he's still young and he's got a lot ahead of him, I think.
Well, this Cronulla side are a team that have got a huge amount of team spirit, and they've got a lot of youth in the side. They can run forever. They just need that little bit of experience. I think when Graham Quinn's in the side too, that he adds that experience that they sometimes lack. Yeah. But Glenn Mortimer too, another one of the Mortimer names coming up into the Cronulla side. He got through 20 tackles and pleased his coach. And I've got to tell you, Jack Gibson's not an easy man to please. He puts it on the line too. North Sydney gave their new coach Brian Norton a first-up win over Souths at North Sydney. The Bears scored 2 first-half tries to run to a 10-0 half-time lead. Souths bombed several try-scoring opportunities, but don't they always? And they've blown their slim final 5 chances. Graham set up North's first try in the 15th minute, and then he was injured, fairly predictably. The win really revolved around South Sydney dropping the ball at critical times, and Mitchell Cox's clever kicking game, which had Souths on the back move all the match. And it's nice to see Mitchell Cox in possession there, finally doing something for this North Sydney side. He's got a huge amount of talent, but just can't get the game together as far as interest point of view.
It's unbelievable. Mark Graham's just a champion player, isn't he? You know,
he is a champion player.
It's funny, you know, Rex, like they've come back from New Zealand, and all of them, you know, McGahn, Dean Bell, Olsen, Mark Graham, they're all playing great football now, you know, another lease of life into them.
That fellow Robertson on the left wing for North Sydney, I didn't know he could play as well as he played last week. I don't know what awards they give at suburban grounds now, not being involved in that anymore. But had there been an award on, he could have won every award that was going. The grandfather clock, you know, the washing machine, the TV set, the whole kit and caboodle. He was great. Yeah,
he's a very quick player too.
Like one out of the blue. You've just never seen. I've never seen him play a real good game before. So it's funny how footballers can suddenly get their act in and, well, they say, get their ass into gear. OK, moving along. Canterbury led 6-0, then had 16 points to 0 scored against them in their match. Lack of discipline against St George by the Canterbury side cost them very dearly. First, Steve Mortimer sending off for 10 minutes, and later Andrew Farrer, well, cost them the win, in my opinion. Canterbury are not the team they were. I don't think anyone's going to argue about that. Great load tacklers like Steve Mortimer are now frequently going high, and they're paying the penalty. Saints scored a try during each 10-minute period that Canterbury was short-handed. Both sides dropped the ball repeatedly, and the overall performance was, I thought, substandard from each. But Kelly showed some good skills early on to get that pass away initially, and then you'll see Jono back up, another one of your opposition, to score a very good try. Clever football from Peter Mortimer. Lovely body movement there to get his hands through. Farrer Lamb, quite out of character, puts a pass down there that you wouldn't believe, but we'll come back to that one because in the wrap later on I talk about that. I think that the guy is, well, shouldn't have been on the football field. He's had an arm injury. Steve Mortimer, I don't know what to say about Steve. I really don't. He was one of the best low tacklers in rugby league, and now he's suddenly developed into a very high tackler, and he's getting himself sin-binned and cautioned and all sorts of stuff. Maybe the pressure's getting to him. But this fella here, Linnaeus.
Well, he's leading us try-scoring list at the moment, isn't he?
He is. I think he's got 13 tries up for the season. And
isn't it?
he's a very fine little player, there's no question about it, and they keep bobbing up with good halves and 5/8s around that St George area, don't they?
Oh, no, they do it.
It's okay. Let's move along to the Monday night game, and by heavens, I'm afraid I can't share the enthusiasm, though, letting back to referees for a moment, for English referee Robin Whitfield, that some of the other media people have in Sydney here. In his matches here, I've seen some of his decisions that he's made or not made on knock-ons, players facing sideways to play the ball and being allowed to molest illegally the tackle player. He does keep the teams apart, but it's usually about a 10 yards, not a 5 yards, as the rule stipulates. Now, I can only imagine the frustration of some of our homegrown whistleblowers that he's being given precedence over them. And I'll have a little bit more to say about that anyway, a little bit later on. Well, they don't have a dominating pack, Parramatta, but you still can't deny the Eels are a definite premiership threat. So many of their players have above-average skills. Some of their back play, Eric Growth apart, was superb. Ella, at half-back, congratulations, John Marnie, an inspired selection to put him there, was absolutely brilliant. Kenny wasn't far behind, and Lydia, Taylor and Hunt all chimed in with great performances. Penrith were outclassed. Alexander apart, who made both his team tries. They were novices by comparison, although the score doesn't necessarily indicate that. Did you see the game?
Yes, I did, Rex. Some brilliant play by the Parramatta backs. That was a superb pass there by Kenny, wasn't it?
Those sort of skills just turned me on. It's like watching or listening to good music. I see a player do a thing like that.
That's great.
And young Alexander finding Wolf on the burst, there's no question about that. His momentum carried him over. There was no double movement involved in that.
Fair try.
But Ella was at his freakish best, and I think that Terry Fernley would be well advised to get him on the field as soon as possible up there in that State of Origin match.
He can turn a game, can't he, Zeke?
The first time one of the New South Wales backs doesn't come up to scratch, I'd have him on. The field goal scores a try that from a great bit of football by Ray Price. Look at the way he turns defence into attack, linking the quick kick, not going too far, Ella. Just that beautiful ability to size up a situation and confident about his pace. The try late in the game to young Craig Izzard, I thought put a wrong view on the score. I thought Parramatta were infinitely a better team. I don't think 21-10 really South Sydney's stupidity cost them dearly against North Sydney last week. This sort of Neanderthal behaviour when in an attacking position on only the second tackle should really result in the offending player being introduced to the reserve grade coach. Certainly no first grader of quality should give the ball away so easily. The worst disaster for the Rabbits came in the minutes just before half-time. They trailed 4-0, but won a scrum in North's quarter against the feed. Baker turned it to Andrews onto Lester Biles, who went hard and when tackled virtually on the line, gave it to Coleman, who dropped it. So instead of leading 6-4 at the break, they trailed 10-0 because North scored a converted try from the tap quarter line restart. A classic case of how to lose the ball and go close to a try against your side. Here, winger Lester Biles is tackled by Steve Mayo and doesn't pay sufficient attention on how he plays it. Hooker Rex Wright strikes for it successfully. Teasdale gives it quickly to the flying Robinson, who needs a damn good tackle to stop him scoring a shock try. And it called for a tackle of the very highest quality to stop the flying Robinson again in the 11th minute. Craig Coleman supplied the expertise. Young Manly prop Phil Daly is about as subtle as a train wreck. Several times, once critically, late in the game, he conceded penalties for rank stupidity. And it's a great pity he was one of Manly's best players against Balmain. This run by Russell Gardner led to Phil Blake breaking his arm just above the wrist. Unfortunately for Manly, Balmain scored their second try down his wing while Blake was being treated prior to replacement. Balmain repeatedly showed their ability to back up the ball carrier. This break up the right had Pearce, Schofield, Jack, Elias, Gale and Schofield again involved, and the Manly defence well and truly in tatters. Now this was the start of Manly's downfall. 16 all, 15 minutes into the second half, and Phil Daly's third caution for an illegality earned Balmain a penalty and the young prop 10 minutes in the sin bin. The death knell for Manly. Davis, the replacement winger, fielded a deep kick and made an inspired run up the left. Gary Jack brings off a magnificent try-saving tackle, but then lay all over Davis. How Jack wasn't sin-binned is beyond me. The referees are totally inconsistent on this bad aspect of the game. St George got away with a rather disappointing Canterbury side at the SCG in a game liberally sprinkled with mistakes. However, Steve Mortimer's presence in the Bulldog outfit certainly brought back some missing flair. English referee Robin Whitfield had, I thought, an ordinary game. There were numerous knock-ons like this which he failed to pull up, confusing the players and crowd alike. Canterbury presently lacked the precision we've come to expect. Chances went begging, like this clean break by Langmack off a Farah pass, but the ball gets thrown on the ground. One of the classiest moves of the match came to nothing for Canterbury, probably because the man who finally bombs the try, Terry Lamb, shouldn't have been on the field. He's had an arm injury for weeks and it proved very costly indeed after great lead-up by Chris and Peter Mortimer, Michael Hagan and Andrew Farrer. Time and again, Saints fullback Glenn Burgess stood rock solid to take bombs under enormous pressure, and he's going to be very hard to drop, even if Brian Johnson regains form. The turning point in the match came when Steve Mortimer, with only recently acquired aggression or bad lack of judgment, flattened Steve Linnane late and high. His removal for 10 minutes cost the Bulldogs dearly. There were so many incidents of the referee failing to administer the rules that I could go on all day, but this one involving Steve Gearan facing directly sideways to play the ball says it all. In other words, Pommy, go home. Our referees may not be all great, but they do know that's not permitted.
Today's special guest on Sports World is Great Britain international Lee Crooks. Crooks, the captain of Hull, came to Sydney midway through the season, and he's lifted Western Suburbs. With Crooks in the side, the Magpies have climbed off the bottom of the table, although things didn't exactly go to plan yesterday against Parramatta.
Nice to welcome you, Lee.
Cheers, Rex.
21 years of age.
Yes, it seems a longer time than that while I've been playing.
They say in England he's going to be a big lad when he stops growing. How heavy are you?
16 stone at the moment.
Yeah, that'll be a bit lighter than your English playing weight, would it?
No, it's a bit heavier.
Is
actually,
it really?
Yeah. Yeah, so
I can't get over your... now, I'm not being critical of you in England, but you were nowhere near the defender when I saw you over there in the 82 time. I can't relate your tackling work now. You get through an enormous amount of tackling for Western Suburbs.
Yeah, it's something that I've improved on over the years since the 82 tour, and I have got big ambitions in the game, and it's part of my game that I had to improve, and hopefully I think I've done that.
You've given a sort of a free go as far as your attack's concerned. Kenny Gentles, your coach, allows you to do your own thing in attack.
Yeah, it's been a big help because I know some coaches have tried to change the English players' game over here to suit their sort of team style, but Ken sort of gave me a free rein and said, just go out there and play as well as you can do, and that's what I've tried to do. Yeah, right.
Okay, well look, Lee, what about next year? Is it going to be Western Suburbs again? Will you be back in Australia?
Well, I'll be back in Australia. At the moment, I'm a bit undecided what I'm going to do. I'd like to come back to Wests, but there's a few things that have got to be sorted out. I'm not going to make any decision until I get back home. I think that I've still got my commitments with West this season, and until them commitments are finished, I'm not going to make any decisions. Okay,
Lee. Well, look, just sit back for a moment because your big turn's to come when we talk about today's games and last week's matches, and I want your opinions on certain things. But for the moment, I just want to get onto that State of Origin war that was on the other night. Well, taking into account a 9-1 first half penalty count against them, the New South Wales team was still, I thought, comprehensively outplayed by Queensland, where it mattered most in the forwards, allowing for some extraordinary refereeing by Mr Gomersall. The Queensland six, with Wally Fullerton Smith and Greg Dowling in ferocious form, exposed the New South Wales pack to a lot of criticism and possible reconstruction. Now, there's a desperate need, in my view, for a ball-playing prop of Craig Young's calibre, and at present no one is setting up the rucks, and the running by the forwards is disjointed and non-constructive. Now, excuse Pat Jarvis from this criticism in that match last Tuesday, as he appears to be taking on the whole Queensland pack on his own at different times. I must say this big Steve Roach must reassess his style and his technique. At club football level, he carries the ball up very strongly, stands in tackles and frequently unloads. But unfortunately in rep stuff, he's very easy to tackle. They've worked him out. They go low round the knees, knock him down, and he goes pretty easily. And he rarely gets the ball away these days in the rep stuff. Now, Peter Wynn, well, he desperately needs a Craig Young style of player inside him because he does run very powerfully, but never constructively, and he doesn't get the ball away often enough for a second rower. The general criticism of the team is that the backs and forwards alike stand too shallow all the time. Both Growth and Ferguson have been starved of good opportunities, and sadly, Johnny Ferguson's defence against a Rebo-size opponent has been brutally exposed. Well, it was pretty unfortunate too that David Brooks and Tony Rampling had to be blooded in such a ferocious match. Both tried hard, and I think they deserve to be persevered with. Halfback Desi Hasler's a little bit of a problem. He presents this as another sort of a problem in my view. I believe he's too involved in everything. He needs to step back occasionally during a game and take stock and have a breather. Otherwise, his head's going to be on the selector's block. By this time next season, I think Wayne Pearce will be in the second row. and Paul Vaughton, on his recent displays, deserves the lock position, which he handles in a very straight, uncomplicated fashion. I take my hat off to the Queensland forwards, Dowling and Fullerton Smith, not to Dowling for his during the match mouthing off. That was a horrible thing, more to say about that later. But for their absolute ferocity, those two. French and Vaughton for their mobility and positional play. Canescu and Brown for locking up the centre of the ruck so well. Murray's service to Lewis and the Queensland and Australian skippers' kicking game was of the very highest order. Colin Scott, well, he's a worthy 2IC to Gary Jack for maybe a touring party spot. Finally, the best to last, Johnny Rebo. John Rebo de Bressac, to give him his full name, on the left wing, went out at a spectacularly high note. He's been the best wing three-quarter in Australia in 1985, and it's a tragedy, really, that he intends to retire this year. At 30 years of age, he certainly is a mighty footballer. Finally, it's always exciting to see a future champion emerge, and I think Queensland have one. Fortunately, he plays with Manly. They need all help they can get. Dale Shearer on the right wing. He's one of those eminently coachable footballers. He has no football vices. He handles, runs and tackles very well, and he has a nil mistake rate. I rate him a very, very classy footballer and the find of the series. And in the better late than never department, I do hope that the ARL do something at official level about the verbal assault heaped on coach Terry Fernley by some Queensland Rugby League officials. They've issued a statement, the New South Wales Rugby League, in support of him, but that doesn't go far enough. Large fines should be available to impose on officials of the New South Wales Rugby League or the Queensland League should they bring the game into disrepute, and remarks that he copped didn't do the game's image any good at all, nor did the unrestrained antics of one of Queensland forwards who shouted torrid abuse at Fernley from the sideline after one of the Queensland tries. Now, the game is tough enough for all concerned without the hysterical type of behaviour, and I think looking at the Australian Rugby League, I hope that they do something official about it, and I'd hope it might be expensive, like a fairly big fine. What did you think of the game?
From a spectator's point of view, I thought it was very enjoyable to watch. There was a lot of emotion involved, I think, which there always is. Looking at it from a rugby point of view, I did think that Queensland's determination was far outweighed New South Wales's. I think maybe the refereeing had a lot to do with that, to a certain extent, because every time they tried to do something, New South Wales, they was bogged down with penalties, and the pressure was took off Queensland a lot.
Does the Yorkshire-Lancashire game emerge as a big game over there in England again?
They're trying to build it up to somewhat similar to the State of Origin series, yeah.
Like a county of origin?
Well, that's what they're going to call it, yeah. But it's over the past few, since they finished it about 2 years ago, I think, and before then it was a bit of a farce. I think there was players just used it, they just dropped out when they wanted, and I think, a lot because the wages weren't very big, and sort of it wanted somewhat for the players to go at.
Okay, now, this attitude that Australian footballers have and Australian coaches have, do you believe that there's too much defence in Australian football, or too much emphasis on defence?
I think there's too much emphasis on defence and not enough on attack. I think that you've got to sort of level it out. The game is all about scoring tries. After all, I know you've got to stop tries, but you've got to score them as well if you want to win.
Yeah.
So I think they've got to put a lot more emphasis on trying to get the ball away in tackles. And
all right. Well, unfortunately, Lee, West the Battlers met Parramatta yesterday when they had a point to prove after being defeated by Cronulla last week. Now, the forwards, led by Price, Jerd and Laurie, laid the foundation for the brilliant Parramatta backs to run right, which they did to the tune of 42 points to 4, scoring 8 tries to 1. They led 20-0 at half-time, so the game was over then, and thank God the whistle went when it did at 80 minutes, or they might have gone on even further. Playing in the game, the pace of the Parramatta backline must have been the most overriding factor.
Yeah, it was by far. I mean, we allowed the Parramatta backs far too much room, and they're just too fast to do that, and they just took it away.
There were a lot of people, myself included, after 2 wins and a draw by Western Suburbs, thought your forwards would make a better fist of it yesterday.
Yeah, I think everybody was a bit disappointed in everybody's play, really. I for one fully expected us to push Parramatta very close indeed, and I thought we could have pulled off an upset, but we just didn't make any headway at all in the forwards, and consequently our backs didn't have any depth at all to run in.
Have you got any backs in England at the moment, looking ahead to the 82 Kangaroos side, that have got the pace of the Ellers, the Kennys, the Growths?
Yeah, I think that when you look at, you've only got to look at Gary Schofield out here. Back home we've got someone called Ellery Hanley, who I think if he comes out next year to Australia, will be a revelation, because I've never seen anybody be able to score tries like he can.
And this young Chalmers there scoring a try. So the Parramatta were well served by their replacements, two of whom Jackson, I think you're going to see score a try. It's always good when you bring replacements on and they come up with tries, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think that so the game was already won when they come on, and I think that we just sort of was fighting for our lives then, and Kenny and that, and they just created a lot of depth, and the space was there all the time after that.
Now, what you've seen of the competition this year and what you've experienced on the football field, which couple of teams do you rate the highest?
Well, going on that performance, I've got to say Parramatta, because I've never seen anybody move the ball out so quick, or played against anybody that moved the ball out so fast and created as much space. And I think Balmain as well, because I've been impressed from the first time I played them. I thought they had a bit of a weakness in defence, but having watched them 3 or 4 times afterwards, I think they've tightened that up, and I think they could be a strong side.
So are you saying a Parramatta Balmain grand final?
Yeah, I'll go for that, yeah.
A lot of people will go with you. We're going to take a break right now. We'll come back and have a look at it. Okay, on to last week's game, and Canterbury made pretty heavy weather of winning their clash against Illawarra. They had plenty of the ball, particularly in the first half, and also the penalties went their way 13-8. But it was a touch of class added by Michael Potter, the Canterbury fullback, in the 50th and 63rd minutes of the second half, which lifted Canterbury to a fairly comfortable win. Canterbury aren't playing anywhere near their potential. However, anyone who writes them off, I think, is a bit of a fool. The first try coming up here in just a moment offers Steve Mortimer pass. How do you see this Canterbury side? A lot of people are disappointed in the way they're travelling this year. Do you subscribe to that?
Yeah, I think so. I think they've been blowing hot and cold all year. I think maybe a lot of it's to do with Steve Mortimer. I think when he's playing well, Canterbury's playing well, and when he seems to be having a bad game, I think the whole side goes poorly.
This young fella Potter there that scored his try is a very quick, alert player. He's done very well for the Canterbury side at fullback.
Yeah, he does. He joins the line very well, and I say he's very quick. I know when we played him, he made a lot of room just by joining the line.
So he did. Tunks there scoring a try from his own bomb. Surely an unusual happening for a front row forward.
It is, yeah.
Terry Lamb, one of the greatest backer-uppers in Sydney football. Now watch Potter change direction here, just go in the inside. And it shows what he's got. He's got everything that's good in a footballer he's got. And Illawarra came back with a late try to Carberry out wide on the left. But really it was Steve Mortimer, I thought, was the linchpin of the game, and you subscribe to that view that he's very important to them.
Oh, yeah.
He was brilliant in the first half, so if they can keep him well and fit, maybe Canterbury can lift themselves. Well, a particularly entertaining game is the next game. That's the Penrith-Norths game. Hell of a lot of ball movement in it. Norths were desperately unlucky not to take the 2 points. They scored 5 tries to 3, and Conlon could manage only 1 goal from 6 attempts. In addition, the late penalty to Penrith, which when Norths led 22-20, should have gone the other way against Penrith, with a possible sending off or sin binning for a trip. I'll show you that in the wrap that we do later. The draw stopped Penrith passing Manly in the top 5, so some good came out of it, Lee.
Yeah.
You know about my allegiance to Manly Warringah, don't you? Here's a funny try to Peter Cross, another one of the front row forwards going round that gets through a lot of work. After a lot of ricocheting around, the ball from a bomb finally came off his foot, and he was able to ground it on the in goal. Lob with a pass out to Fenton, and Levy, one of the veteran fullbacks around Sydney, goes in. You played the Penrith side. How do they strike you?
They're another one that seems to be blowing hot and cold as well this season. It's a bit funny. I think that a lot of teams that are expected to make the 5 don't seem to be playing as well as they should be.
Greg Alexander's a very good player, the halfback.
Yeah, he is. I've noticed since the times I've watched him, he seems very quick and alert.
The funny thing happens here. 2 players. Robinson there drops the ball, Steve Robinson, and Steve Robinson scores the try. So 2 Steve Robinsons in one match. A bit confusing for commentators, although one's got a better suntan than the other. Yeah. Mitchell Cox, who came to light with a game 2, he's a former rugby union man, international, but he's not been playing well, but suddenly he's come good, and he puts up a bomb here that North you'll see score from. And Lyons is there to pick up the dregs. He's a very intelligent player, Lyons, gets through a lot of work, but you'd say that a goal kicker that can only come up with 1 from 6 has got to go and do something about that, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, I think that especially in close matches, you've got to depend on your goal kickers a lot. And,
sure have. What's, goal kicking for you is a full-time occupation for Hull, is it?
It used to be until I got injured, and then I was out for 8 weeks with a cartilage operation, and then I come back and Gary Schofield was kicking, and he was kicking quite well, so we
So
just
the little
left it
devil
there.
kept it, did he?
Yeah.
At least backs, they'll do it every time, won't they?
Yeah.
OK, let's move along to the Cronulla-Parramatta game, and what a shock this was. Cronulla absolutely shocked Parramatta with 18 points in an opening 18 minutes charge to go to a pretty commanding lead. Their running and backing up was classy, and their defence blotted the Eels out for long periods. Now, the amazing thing was that the big names in the Eels' backline, which we've seen demolish Western Suburbs yesterday, were totally overshadowed by the likes of Russell, Wakefield, Hurst, McGaw, Carney, Eddinghausen and Docking. Now, Parramatta's pace looked decidedly second class at times, with the likes of Hatch, Withall, Diamond and Hilliard for Cronulla dictating play totally. And there's Withall, who's out for Monday night, unfortunately. He's a good ball-playing prop. Have you come up against him?
I think so. I think he played when we played.
He's been out with injury for a long while.
Yeah, they say he's a very good ball handling player.
Yes, he gets the ball away. He's more of an English style of player. Ello chimed in to get Parramatta back in the game by giving a long run to Eric Groth, he outdistanced the opposition. But that astonishing early 15 minutes, 3 tries in 15 minutes, and it could have been 3 in 7 minutes at one stage. There's Russell going in from Hatch. Hatch has been the most improved footballer on the Cronulla side this year, in my view.
Yeah, he's apparently been playing very well indeed, and I think he's probably one of the mainstays of the side.
Well, of course, Cronulla are on 20 points at the moment. They can, with 6 wins, there are 6 matches to go, finish on 32 points, which could conceivably get them into the final 5. So they've got it all to do. See big Eric Groth just knocking somebody out of the way there. Hurst, the winger, he's a powerful man, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a tremendous player.
Now, Ray Price, you won't see him make an error like that for a long while. I have never seen him throw a pass that was intercepted. Certainly not and scored a try. Well, Jack Gibson, before the match, said they were 1,000 to 1 on. He's shortened the odds to 999 to 1 on to get into the top 5. Always has a good sense of humour as old Jack. Well, does anyone doubt around Sydney? Because if you do, you must be deaf about my desire for Manly to win the premiership. But I've also open and honest about the fact, but along with that, I'm not a bloody fool, and I won't waste time on lost causes. The present Manly team is totally substandard. Their forwards were comprehensively outplayed by the St George Six in every facet of the game last week at Brookvale, while the backs were non-existent in attack. Now, only one thing emerged as a plus for the Seagulls, and that was young Dale Shearer. He made a very good first up fist of being fullback, and later he switched to 5'8" and did very well there. But this was an absolute embarrassment. You saw this on television, I guess.
Yeah, I did watch it, Rex. It seemed to me that they're just playing as individuals and not as a team, actually.
Well, they looked to me, some of them in the forwards looked to me a bit terrified of the St George pack. They wouldn't move up to tackle them. They let this win rampage on the blind side. And when you get that sort of situation, this is the setup for the first try by Craig Young. Look at this, just strolling through from 12 yards out. Through 5 defenders. Now, that's a disgrace in first-grade football.
Yeah, I think that if you're going to be any premiership standard, I think your defence has got to be a lot better.
Well, Wynn, Fafita, Jarvis and Noak were all outstanding, and later in the match when the St George backs got a bit of an opportunity to get into the act, they put on tries. Beattie overheading a pass out to O'Connor, and he scored a spectacular try. He'd also got a field goal. Close comes up with a strong try from dummy half here for Manly, but it was a solo effort, and not taking nothing away from him getting the try, but Manly didn't look like a team all afternoon. Noak's a player too on the St George side that I like. You've come up with him?
Yeah, I've played against him. He's a very, very good player. I think he takes the ball up strongly and hits the gaps. I think a lot of the players feed very well off Craig Young.
They do indeed. Well, he's obviously a very good player, and I think every team needs that sort of a player. You're that sort of a player for Western Suburbs.
Yeah, I think that you've got to, somewhere in your pack, you've got to have someone who can hit the line and turn and feed the ball to either a running forward or a running back. I think without that, you're just sort of moving the ball backwards and forwards all the time.
Yeah, I feel sorry for you that I've invited you in today after West was so comprehensively beaten yesterday, if you can follow my reasoning, because we could have talked at some length about the good things you've done if we'd had the video to show from previous weeks. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So Lee's been doing a great job for the Western Suburbs side, and I really do think that every team needs this sort of ball playing forward, and I like the idea of a little bit more attack in the game rather than the total dedication to defence that some of our coaches have. Well, let's talk about the Western Canberra game from Monday night at the Sydney Cricket Ground. I thought it was a game with plenty to enthuse about. The 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 effort put in was about 100% from both sides, and that's what the fans really want to see. The dramatic finish too, with West fullback Epifania putting through a kick, and Sam Bacco, the replacement Canberra forward, being unable to kill it, led to the equalising try. And the goal, of course, by Neil and Crooks, respectively. Now, I enjoyed every moment of this game. It must have been a good game to play in.
It was a tremendous game. I think playing on the cricket ground as well sort of inspired our lads to do a lot better. And we stuck to our guns. I think we was under a lot of pressure early in the match, and we kept Canberra out for long periods. I think we was very disappointed during the 2 tries we let them score, because they're very slack defensively.
Well, this try by Atkins is a fine solo effort, but there's a bit of shoddy defence there, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think that the first 2 tackles he went through was very poor. I think I'll let Leo away with that, because it was quite a good step.
Now this one from the line dropout too, and you allowed Gitto to run right through the middle. I mean, he's not the fastest player in the world, is he?
He's I think the 2 tries he scored was very disappointed in, really.
Yeah. So Carey was the scorer of that try. MacArthur had a good game, and there's the kick coming through. And Bacco, I felt very sorry for him. He'd only come on the field a short time before, and then he's suddenly responsible for the team not getting 2 points.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a bad bounce for him.
It was,
just coming on at that stage of the game.
So it was. Anyway, MacArthur on the left wing, a great solo try. You won't see too many better. Michael Neal at half-back gave 100%. I thought he was one of your best players yesterday too.
He's been playing very consistently all season, I think.
You can't miss him with that red hair, can you?
Oh, no.
Is he a talkative little bloke on the field?
Yeah, he's very talkative. I think you have to be really to be an half-back, and he gets the side going all the time, and he's very tricky.
He is indeed. And Alan Fowler too, your hooker, I've got a bit of a rap on. I think he plays a very consistent game of football.
He does. He's been playing very well all season as well.
All right, well, let's move along to today's games, when we've got to put out... Didn't necessarily make the highlights. When good sides get beaten, it usually means that the winners play intelligent football. This type of ball work, illustrated by Dean Carney, the huge Cronulla winger, led to their opening try, and had obviously been instilled by Jack Gibson's coaching. Cronulla's second try to Carney came as a result of Paul Taylor, the Eels fullback, being up in the defensive line out of position. This passage of play in only the 6th minute clearly illustrate the perils inherent for a team who give their fullback a roving commission. Again, he's up in the line, and it's only a frantic dive by David Lydiard which saves the Eels from the enormous embarrassment of 3 tries against them in 6 minutes. Surprises came thick and fast for Parramatta. Here, a crossfield kick instead of a long pass completely bewilders the Eels' defence. When you're hot, you're hot. When you're not, you're not. The Cronulla is certainly hot. Everything they tried came off. Have a look at fullback Docking taking this kick. It wasn't all Cronulla. The Eels had their flashes of brilliance. Here, a perfect kick into open space by Sterling is run onto by David Lydiard, and only a despairing dive by fullback Jonathan Docking unseats him and saves a runaway try. The magic of Mick Cronin in this move sets Parramatta alight. David Lydiard again, the player to make the long break, this time deep into Shark territory. For the closeness of the score all through the drawn game between North and Penrith, every chance to score which went astray must be looked at with dismay by both sides. This fine attack by Penrith traversed 75 yards, had 6 players involved, and the very last pass to winger Brett Lobb from Greg Alexander was ruled forward by the well-positioned referee, Mr Whitfield. North's 5'8", Lions ran foul of Mr Whitfield again in this incident when he tried to con the referee into getting a penalty for allegedly being held down. The signals, while different to our whistleblowers, are explicit. Get back, he says to Lions. Penalty to Penrith. Holding the jumper of the man on top of you. Back chat. Throwing the ball away. Kick it goal, Penrith. Well, at last, former international rugby union player Mitchell Cox is playing the football everyone expected of him. Keep your eye on number 7, North. These 2 passages of play illustrate the great pace and dexterity of footwork he's always had, but are so rarely shown in previous matches this season. Now, this incident sadly cost North the match. Lions backchats the referee for the 2nd time in the game over an incident in which Penrith Greg Alexander had deliberately tripped him. The referee should, in my opinion, have penalised and sin-binned Alexander. Instead, Lions just walked another 10 yards. Alexander kicks the goal and the score's a level. A tragedy, but a lesson to Lions to keep his trap shut. Back after his enforced 3-week break, Steve Mortimer was all over the field against Illawarra. He set up several tries and could, with just a little bit of luck, scored from this kick ahead. Finally, Peter Tunk scored his try from his own bomb. Euphoria reigned supreme among the Canterbury players but I'd advise young Paul Langmack to curb his enthusiasm or he could break someone's neck.